Hey, how's it going, boys? What is up? Sora's back once again, and this is my very first, I guess, official video for GBF Versus. So there's probably got a lot more that I have coming up. This is probably just one of the few that I'm planning to make for Versus, and do keep in mind that this is all mostly just related to the RPG mode because I am bad at the fighting game in general. So I'm just gonna, well, let you guys know how I think, what stuff, teach you some basic stuff for the RPG portion. So anyway, let's just jump right into it. So for this video, I am all mostly focused on how to build your grid. I guess it's kind of like the basic understanding of the grid in Versus. It is, if you are technically already a GBF player in general and you've been playing the original GBF, I'm pretty certain you already kind of know how it works. Anyway, but this is mostly catered for people who are still relatively new to the game and kind of want to, you know, get good in the RPG mode or whatever, get extra damage or whatever. So this is just like the basic configuration or like the understanding on the grid system for this game, the RPG mode in general. And I just want to point it out also, one more thing is that, well, I've been playing this game for quite a bit, and probably by the time you see this video, it has already been launched in the NA version. I've been playing a lot on the other version, but I'll be playing even more because wink wink, there's very interesting stuff happening for the upcoming future, especially for this game. I have more stuff for you guys. So anyway, let's just go right into the damn thing because I'm probably wasting too much time talking about this. Alright, so first and foremost, I want to point out that the auto select is dog shit, okay? Do not ever use the auto select function. I know my fucking camera is kind of covering it, but yes, do not use the auto select because that is absolute shit. But anyway, the very obvious thing is that you kind of have to go on element in majority of the runs if you kind of want to make your runs a lot easier and stuff like that. But in short, the other thing is that you just kind of need to get, well, nice looking SSR weapons and whatnot. But that's the easy part, right? You just gotta get lucky and get all this stuff, right? But to kind of how to build it in general, I'm just gonna put it in short, where all 6 elements, right, for wind, water, earth, fire, light, and dark, the best one from what I can see so far, probably like the main 4 elements, the wind, water, earth, and fire, and probably I would also say dark, the easiest way to, or best ones to farm is obviously the Magna ones. And what that actually means is that if you pay close attention to the to this weapon here, is that you see there's a thing called Alios Might 2 or something, then you kind of notice there's a little Omega icon on it. That actually kind of means Omega, well, / Magna in the original term we tend to use in the actual game. So that's what it means. And then you kind of want to boost it according to those, and because we don't exactly have summons in these games, you use weapons itself. You put it as your main hand, which is technically not really a main hand, but yeah, you put it as your main hand and you get the boost itself. That's why you can see the weapon. I can't even point properly. That weapon aura thing, if you notice, there's like this weapon aura that says Alias's skill boost plus 50% boost to Alias's weapon skills. So basically it means that it's just boosting all the so-called Magna / Omega modifiers. From what I can see, Omega has the highest modifier. There is no such thing where like you max limit break it. By what I mean by max limit break is like you have 3 stars on the weapon, as you can see on the right side of the screen. Like the so-called aura does not increase whatnot. It's always the same throughout the entire thing. So like there's 3 different types of this weapon auras. One is the Omega one, or I'm just gonna call it Magna, okay? So there's a Magna one, there's a normal one, which is this one. It gives only 40%, which is to wind, whirlwinds, and ventoses, whatever you wanna call it. But yeah, this is the normal mod. it doesn't have, if you look at the weapon skills, it doesn't have any omega or whatever icon on it. So this is what we call a normal modifier. So this normal modifier, the aura only has 40%, right? And then we have the final one, which is the one that has EX on the said icon. So this is what we call the so-called unknown modifier, but technically these days we kind of just call it EX because, well, the icon just says EX in general, right? And then the aura also shows that it's called Wind Force Plus, and it's only 30% boost to wind at character's attack. So like the modifiers, you can tell like Magna is probably the best one. Is at 50%, normal is at 40, and then this is what we call the elemental boost. It's just because it's just scaling on elemental damage and it's only 30%. And so from what I can tell, obviously Magna is the best one because it scales 50%, and then there's so many Magna stuff you can actually farm in the game or / craft. I'll explain more in depth on how to build the said grids or whatever for specific elements. I'm just gonna go like basically how you kind of want to build your grid accordingly. So anyway, for Magna in general, you kind of want to fill up your grid, which also includes your main hand as well, which is this big one up here. You kind of want to fill at least probably 6, 7, but by the looks of this versus version, you can technically just fill up as much as you can, but you don't really want to do that. But if you do get like a normal mod and stuff, you can kind of slot it in. So as you can tell, I actually do have up to 6 Magna mods here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. And I definitely would highly suggest that you should at least have 1 or 2 EX mods in there as well, because it scales like crazy. Your damage is just gonna skyrocket, and the other 2 slots you can just kind of make do with like having a normal mod or whatnot, and which usually you can kind of get by, I don't know, your gacha stuff or whatnot. You could also technically farm them in like certain other maps or whatever, but we're not gonna go too deep into that. So what I'm trying to say is that like for Magna versions in general, because the reason why I say it's only probably 6 to 7 is best, because the more you put into it, it kind of have some diminishing returns. So you kind of want to min-max on like how much damage you want, right? And one more thing before I proceed any further, to make your life a lot easier, if you're wondering what weapon skills you'll be looking out for, I can tell you for a fact that you just need to look for attack mods. Like all this, it just says big boost to win whatever characters attack, whatever elements attack, right? Just look for that. just look for that, and things happen. You boost up a hell lot. Another thing you have to also keep in mind is that you don't exactly have to max limit break them by as in getting all to 3 stars. As you can see, I have like majority of my weapons are all 3 stars, but you know there are some at 0 stuff and stuff. But the reason why I say that is because this game, or even the original game itself, is that it scales very well or very much more on the said weapon skills. So even though your weapon itself is only 0 stars and is stuck at level 40, right? It doesn't really matter because this weapon skill itself is the important one. So it's better for you to have like a 0 star and then you just fill up your grid with like the base grid, and then you just have like your damage will just skyrocket and whatnot. Because all it does by limit breaking every single or one of these weapons, all it does is basically just increase the stats of it. That's all. It doesn't really do much. It just gives you raw stats and whatnot. So it gives you just HP and attack, nothing else. So that's why it's better to just fill up your grid. As you can see, like I have like just my base grid here. I have only a few weapons that are only 3 stars, but like, yeah, you get the idea, right? So this is like another example. Like I have already grind like a crazy amount. I can probably put more, but well, I'm a little bit too lazy to farm even more. But yeah, you can actually go even more if you want. But yeah, you can just see like most of my items here are already maxed out because I already farmed the Magna weapons like crazy. And then yeah, the EX mods, I have like some normal mods here and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty. It's honestly not that hard to farm. You just have to spend a lot of time, well, farming the said boss and whatnot. Oh, and another thing to note is that I also kind of noticed this while playing the game, is that for some reason the critical weapon skill in this game is actually really insane, because it just gives you a critical rate and it boosts the damage whenever you hit the so-called weak points or whatever, or you're in like having like a elemental advantage or whatnot. For some reason, it just really skills like crazy, even though like mine is not maxed out or whatever, right? Like in terms of like the limit breaks or whatever. Just having 2 of this LeFace is actually really insane, because it gives you big, it deducts your HP, but that really doesn't matter all too much. But like the critical in this game is, for some reason, is really crazy. Just another thing I just kind of want to point out, if any one of you is wondering. So another one is probably like for this one, for fire, is the Athena spear. We don't, well, nobody will understand that unless you're playing the actual GBF, because this is the weapon that drops from the boss Athena in the actual game. But this is, I think you can only get this from like gacha, or probably some I forgot which boss was it, some fire boss or whatever. I don't think Colossus drops this, but yeah, anyway, this is not a video about where you get all these said weapons, right? Another thing I want to point out when it comes to weapon grid building is that besides the likes of Magna, because I've already spent like God knows how long just mentioning Magna, right? It's not just Magna. You can also technically go with normal mod as well. As you can see that I built a normal mod grid for my set light. So anyway, for light, for normal mod in general, you can kind of do things a little bit different from Magna. You can also kind of do the same way as Magna, but technically because light, for example, light is a little bit different, because light has a lot of different weapons, like for example this shaft sword here, or luminaria sword, whichever you want to call it. And we also have this Miana, whatever you call this weapon. Whatever you call this weapon. So basically, because the reason why is that these weapons have 2 different mods in that, so it actually scales differently. So what that means is that you can technically put a lot of these, and not to mention you can also fill in like just normal mods in general to just fill up your grid. So you don't really have to follow the same weapon grid as I mentioned earlier for Magna, because you know Magna, you kind of want to have like 6 to 7, because if not you have diminishing returns, right? So you don't really want to do that. But for normal mod, you can kind of do that. You can technically just stack it all to like all the same, because like, yeah, because you have weapons like these. But then more or less you also have weapons like these as well, which is really huge, because well, it has a massive light attack and a small attack normal mod. So that's why. So it doesn't really matter too much. You can just stack it all, but honestly, the other thing you probably want to keep in mind is to at least have an EX weapon or 2 in your grid to actually bump up your average damage a little bit more. The main reason why I call it all like this when it calls diminishing returns and whatnot, right, is because the way this, to make it simple for you guys, like in terms of how they calculate all this, right, is basically you have like one specific mod is been like, you know, you're just stacking up a lot of these mods way too much, right? So it's like to increase it even like much more of the same one is gonna be harder. So it's like it keeps going up like really like in a certain speed, and then all of a sudden it starts to slow down. That's how it is. And then, but if you put in like another different modifier like this EX one, so it's basically what it does is that you have another brand new stack at the bottom, or like a new bar basically. So the modifier that increases your damage a lot more compared to the likes of just stacking the same one over and over. So that's one of the main reasons why you kind of want to have different modifiers and whatnot. So that's why if you see, like for example, even though I have like a 0-star EX mod here, right, if I change it to the set, like I don't know, like this one for example, this one is like a skill level 10, but it's a normal mod, right? But if I put this, you see the numbers actually went down, right? Even though it's 2 stars, it has much better stats as well, but it still went down. So that's basically what I mean by that. That's why. So that's why you kind of want to have at least 1 or 2. 2 seems to be like a good amount of EX weapons into your grid. So anyway, lastly, I just want to cover the last part, which is the elemental mod. I haven't exactly tested this though, but I would actually think that is, even though the modifier is kind of low, and I did mention that earlier, that I said is you can kind of ignore that, but I just want to put a little bit of a disclaimer that I haven't really tested this fully. But honestly, I think it may actually work. I may actually do some testing again some other time. But from what I can see, like, as long as you have a grid that, you know, similar to like, if you have a grid that has weapons like these, that adds massive boosts on stuff like that, which honestly, I think it only applies to both light and dark. Because light has this Huanglong Katana or Longdong Katana, which you want to call it. You have this, or you have the likes of this. So I would say it actually could potentially work. So it's quite simple as well, but at the same time is that this set elemental thing is kind of like, it's very straightforward compared to the likes of the other two, right? For a normal and Magna version of it, you can technically just slot in as many as you can and just call it a day. Because honestly, as I mentioned earlier, the other nodes like HP and whatnot is just, you don't really have to use that at all because it's just really bad in general. Just focus all on getting those weapons that gives you attack mods and whatnot, and it should be fine. So if you really want to do that, I think you can try, but yeah, either way, that's kind of like the gist of grid building in the RPG mode. It's not really that hard, it's not really that confusing either way. You just kind of need to keep in mind, like, if you're trying to make a Magna grid or a normal mod or whatever, you kind of need to have this little certain stuff in mind before putting it in place. So in short, okay, I'm just gonna summarize everything. So for Magna, you kind of just want to have like 6 to 7 Magna mods, and then you fill in like at least probably 1 or 2 EX mods, and the rest you just fill in with normal mods. That's fine too. As for normal mods, you kind of want to just fill in as much normal mods as you can. You don't really want to have the Magna one, but if you have the Magna one, such as like this this spear here or the chef swords, you can also slot that in. It'll probably help you out a little bit more. And then as you can tell, I also have like 1 full chef gun here, which just adds full Magna mods here. The reason why I do that, because I don't really have like a huge ton of Magna mods yet, because all these are just all small and small, right? So that's why I've just put it just 1, and then I just fill in the rest with just normal mods and the EX mods and whatnot. So you could just do that. So yeah. And then finally the last one is the elemental mod, which is only coming in from the EX weapons. For this, it's just very simple. You just basically put in as many weapons as you can. You just fill in with all big whatever or massive whatever. Just put in any sort of weapon boost in there. If you do not have like a full SSR grid yet, do not be alarmed or sad about it. Like, you'll be wondering like, how am I supposed to get all this stuff before, you know, how to like get there and stuff. You don't have to worry. You can also just change it and change it into SR. That's because you have to keep in mind a lot of these weapons, SR weapons, as you can see, like I did use a lot of these SR weapons, and it's relatively doable as well. And all these weapons, the reason why I said that you can actually just use all these SR weapons is because that you can buy them in the said shop. So now we are in the Sarah shop. You can actually just look around and you can notice that there are some weapons that have different types of mods. See, that's like it's just medium boost and stuff like that, right? So you can just buy the ones like Magna, or you can just buy a normal mod, or whichever you want. It's really up to you. You can just buy them and just fill in your grid, and it's honestly not that expensive. It's not even that hard to farm in the first place. Like, in terms of rupees, you can just get like a crazy amount of rupees relatively quick. Like, you can probably see like all these Rs, you can just sell it off or whatever and just buy all this, right? It's really easy. Just fill up your grid with all this, and I think you should be good to go. And so that's basically the gist of grid building in GBF. This is kind of like more like my experience and stuff like that, and from what I can see so far. But yeah, so far it's been going relatively great. And yeah, anyway, that's about it for this basic grid building. Do keep a lookout. Click that subscribe button if you want more GBF versus content when it comes to RPG mode, I guess. So make sure you click like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys on the next video or on stream. Peace.